One policy thread has hurt the Liberals over many decades, especially under Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull. Climate and energy policy has hurt the party on many levels. Sometimes it's been a tug of war, sometimes an open battle, sometimes it's been used as an issue of political revenge. In 2018, with his National Energy Guarantee, or NEG, Malcolm Turnbull was putting climate and energy policy on the line again.
Could you see that it was going to cost Malcolm Turnbull his leadership?
Well, I think there were other factors at play. There were people, certainly, who wanted to bring down Malcolm Turnbull, and they would have used any opportunity to do so.
In September 2015, Malcolm Turnbull used Newspoll as a weapon to undercut Tony Abbott.
We have lost 30 Newspolls in a row. It is clear that the people have made up their mind about Mr Abbott's leadership.
By April 2018, Turnbull had reached the same inglorious tally.
With the Newspoll promise, with the Newspoll paradigm, he was hoist on his own petard, wasn't he?
Well, he set up that test. Certainly many commentators pointed that out.
He failed his own test.
He failed his own test.
It was unhelpful. But, of course, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, of course, because the people who were anti-Turnbull in the government, all they needed to do was keep making sure we never had any breaks so they could keep the Newspoll suppressed, which is exactly what they did.
Let's talk again of a leadership challenge. Are you part of that?
Nope. From time to time, I might challenge the government to rethink things, but the last thing I want to see is instability in the government.
This time, a challenge was looming not from Tony Abbott, but from a member of Turnbull's own front bench, Peter Dutton.
Look, right from the start, I never harboured animosity toward Malcolm at all. This was never sort of a Rudd Gillard, Abbott, Turnbull type relationship. I did all I could to make sure that his prime ministership succeeded.
He is a member of our team. He has given me his absolute support.
This was a bad Monday for the Prime Minister. The polls were down again, and his own MPs were threatening to cross the floor to vote against his climate and energy policy.
Now, it is clear that in the absence of bipartisan support of the National Energy Guarantee, will not be able to pass the House of Representatives.
That night, Turnbull decided to try to preempt any leadership challenge by pulling a surprise spill himself at the regular party room meeting the next morning.
Were you given a heads up on that morning, or were you surprised in the party room?
I was totally surprised in the party room. I couldn't believe it.
Malcolm takes his seat in amongst the colleagues rather than being up the front. The returning officer calls for nominations for the leadership. Please stand if you'd like to contest. Malcolm Turnbull, of course, immediately stands, and there's a long pause. Eventually, Peter Dutton stood equally.
Turnbull's ploy worked for the day. He prevailed over Peter Dutton by what might have been an unlucky 13 votes.
You've been wounded, Prime Minister. Do you want to speak?
This was an overwhelming vote of support for the Prime Minister.
Did you consider putting your hand up
Absolutely
then?
not. No, no,
Not even for a millisecond? You
No.
think I could put up my hand here?
no. Never entered my mind. In fact, that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that, to be honest. Just no.
So your immediate instinct was, I've got to lock in here behind the Prime Minister, no matter I think this is a crazy move?
Absolutely. I was his treasurer and a friend. This is my leader.
There you go.
And I'm ambitious for him.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, ScoMo.
But elsewhere, support for Turnbull was in freefall, with a growing number of frontbenchers quitting the ministry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I'm sure honourable members are aware, the Minister for Home Affairs has resigned from the ministry. I want to thank him for his service.
Can you guarantee that you will not launch a leadership challenge before the next election?
Well, look, again, just in terms of colleagues, I'm very grateful for the support that they've provided.
And straight away, Peter Dutton started gathering forces for a second challenge that week. Malcolm Turnbull demanded to have 43 signatures on a piece of paper. Was that fair play?
That was my idea, and it was a good idea.
I now await a letter with the signatures of a majority of the party room.
Was it fair play, though?
Absolutely it was. I've spent the morning with the Prime Minister and the evening with the Prime Minister, and I am 100% supportive of the Prime Minister. These people apparently had the numbers. They just had a ballot on the Tuesday morning. It was one of the most amateur-hour operations I'd ever seen in my life. It was like killing a man with a garden stake on the footpath, trying to take out Malcolm Turnbull. I'd seen some very precise leadership challenges. This was one of the least precise.
But it wasn't a challenge. Malcolm Turnbull had brought it on.
Yes, he did. I think that was a mistake to have the vote on the Tuesday morning.
The Prime Ministership was falling down around Malcolm Turnbull, wasn't it?
Well, he'd asked the question and people were answering the question, and enough people were giving a very clear answer that this was a big challenge for him.
It has been an extraordinary spectacle of disunity, of division, of personal hatred.
We've got this spectacle, this disgrace. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
For Malcolm Turnbull, the hammer blow came when the triumvirate of Michaelia Cash, Mitch Fifield and Matthias Cormann resigned together.
With great sadness and a heavy heart that we went to see the Prime Minister yesterday afternoon to advise him that he no longer enjoyed the support of a majority of members in the Liberal Party party room.
But the list of signatories against the Prime Minister was still shy of the required 43. And it was Thursday, the last sitting day, and MPs were soon to go home. Scott Morrison proposed this as a lifeline for Malcolm Turnbull.
Let everybody go home, go and face their electorates, feel the unhappiness at the instability, and let's regroup and come back here in a couple of weeks. So let's go home. And Christopher thought, that's an interesting idea. But Malcolm decided to see what happened by the following morning and said, if the signatures all came in, then he'd call the meeting. Now, I actually don't think he got the credit he deserved for doing that. That was an honourable thing to do.
And that Friday's dawn brought the 43rd signature. It belonged to Warren Entsch, a great mate of Brendan Nelson, the former Liberal leader deposed by Malcolm Turnbull way back in 2008.
It was an incredible call to demand
Unbelievable.
to have those 43 names.
Arrogant, and 43. So I said, look, I'm going to do a deal with you. If you want my signature, I'm happy to give it to you, but it will only be number 43. Only 43. They were a little bit puzzled, but I said, it's not negotiable. You must come to me when you've got 42 signatures, and I'll give you 43. They did. And that's when I wrote for Brendan Nelson, because I thought if he wants to know who we are, let's remind him of his own treachery. And when it came out, I got a fabulous call from Brendan, and he was quite touched by it. He felt that, at least now people had an idea, Malcolm getting a bit of his own.